Mr Howard, is this very positive message at risk of getting lost because of Mr Abbott's comments about Bernie Banton?
Absolutely not. Mr Abbott apologised to Mr Banton, which is more than Mr Rudd did to the parents of that brave British soldier in Afghanistan. It took Mr Rudd weeks to send an email, and he only did it because the issue became public yesterday.
Did you ask Mr Abbott to apologise?
No, I didn't. Mr Abbott is the sort of man who does these things without being pressured, unlike Mr Rudd, who has to be pressured. I don't remember anybody in the Labor Party apologising to Tony Staley or Janet Albrechtsen for the appalling things that were said about them, so let's not have any hypocrisy from the Labor Party on that.
Given your comments on the Labor candidate for Hinkler, what about Peter Phelps, Gary Nann's Chief of Staff? Should he resign as well as the
Well, he was reprimanded for what he did, and he's not a candidate. This bloke is representing the Australian Labor Party. And he called the parents of a British soldier in Afghanistan warmongers, English warmongers. I mean, that's about as contemptible as you can get.
Tony Abbott's comments. Are you going soft on Tony Abbott's comments because you're basically being embarrassed by your candidate, Mr Parr?
We talked about that yesterday.
Mr Howard, after you said that Mr Howard did call for him to be removed.
Mr Howard's usually calling for someone to be removed from the Labor Party every other day. That's just sort of normal for Mr Howard. No, I think the exchange in terms of Bernie is something obviously between he and Mr Abbott. I went and saw Bernie at his home in Sydney, I think it was last week, and had a long yak with him about his own challenges and his own struggles, and he's a very decent bloke. He's got a real fight on his hands, and how they reconcile their relationship is a matter for them. I note what Mr Abbott has said.
Yes, I mean, unless you are providing the right resources. I mean, the people that actually run these hospitals have the best care of patients that's their driving force. No matter whether it's the CEOs or the doctors or the area health services, they are actually good people trying to run a good health system, and they're doing it with budgets that are not big enough and with not enough staff. So whoever has final ultimate buck stops with me responsibility, I don't think it makes a lot of difference without the money.
Well, Gerard Henderson, the PM did say, and we heard it in that clip that we just played, that there will be more announcements to come on health as far as he's concerned, and clearly Kevin Rudd will have more as well. But on this issue of who should run hospitals, which side do you think has a better grasp on how to fix the problem?
Well, I think both Mr Rudd and Mr Howard had some good initiatives today, but the problem I see with Kevin Rudd's policy is he's proposing to give money back to the states, back to the very bureaucracies who have so mishandled the hospitals in many Australian states at the moment, who would then in turn negotiate access into private hospitals. So I tend to think that going back to the community board system is probably a worthwhile initiative. I mean, I know a little bit about Royal North Shore Hospital in Sydney, and I know that, like many public hospitals, is absolutely burdened by bureaucratic controls. And people say there aren't any trained nurses around. There are plenty of trained nurses around, but they're not working in the workforce. They've left the workforce.
You've got to get them back.
Well, they've got to get them back. And why have they left? Because many of them are just completely annoyed by bureaucracy and by how they've been handled in the public system. So the idea that the state bureaucracies are the solution here, they're not. Now, whether if you put community boards in, they will overcome all these problems, I don't know. But in a place like Royal North Shore Hospital, it's hard to see how it can be any worse.
If you've ever suspected the Channel 9 worm wasn't the real deal, there's now evidence. A media insider revealing today how the panel was encouraged and manipulated to vote a certain way on a televised debate. In the latest news poll, Peter Costello was preferred treasurer over Wayne Swan, 51 to 28. Yesterday, the worm took the opposite view, giving it to Swan, 56 to 44. Andrew Burke on how the revelations sickened those trying to play it by the rules.
I think the worm's most probably become the national joke now.
It is a farce.
It's skewing the results.
The results are in and it's official. Channel 9's worm is a grub.
The public have buried it anyway. I mean, the very fact we're talking about it, the public know that it's not credible, and you shouldn't be persisting with something that's not credible.
So we can free ourselves of all of the allegations that...
Defying every opinion poll so far, the worm gave Shadow Treasurer Wayne Swan a 12% victory over Federal Treasurer Peter Costello in the Treasurer's debate yesterday. But as you're about to see, it's a hollow victory. Radio 2GB's Alan Jones.
Well, I thought Peter Costello was very dominant. I thought Wayne Swan did a very good job. He's new, it's his first time, but he didn't win it.
We've got the budget balanced. We've paid off Labor's $96 billion of debt, and we're now saving $9 billion a year in interest payments.
Costello would beat anybody internationally, I think, on matters of treasury and matters of finance. I mean, Costello's a first-class product when it comes to managing economies.
I wouldn't say the worm's got much value at all.
Michael McLaren works behind me here at top radio station 2GB. He experienced the sham firsthand. He'd been contacted by a friend and asked to participate in the worm debate as an audience member. Not only was he not checked out for any political affiliation, he was told by Channel 9 producers how to vote.
You've got numbers 1 to 9, and 1 is coloured red, and I extremely disagree, and 9 is coloured green for the opposite. And what they suggest is that you'll keep your left thumb on 1, your right thumb on 9. And if you push either one of those extremities, it makes the worm modulate quite nicely. So they get a nice aesthetic look on the screen, if you will. But what that doesn't allow you to do is say, well, I kind of like what they're saying, but I'm not, gung-ho for it.
Well, I actually got the call on Saturday morning, and when I picked up the phone, the girl goes, "Hi, I don't remember her name. I'm calling from Channel 9. I want you to take part in the worm audience for the Great Debate on Tuesday." And I said, "Absolutely, when is it on?" And she said, "It's on at 11:30. I said, "Well, most people work at 11:30 on a Tuesday." And she goes, "Oh, but we'll pay you $30 to come in." And I said, "I still can't do it, but if I can find someone, can I give you a call back?" And she did, and she gave us the number of someone to call back.
John Redmond works for Sydney talkback king Alan Jones. He too was asked to be a worm audience member, but not by the research company contracted by Nine to organise the audience list, McNair Research. Instead, John says he was asked directly by Channel 9.
She definitely said she was from Channel 9. If she said, "Hi, it's such and such, I'm representing whoever for Channel 9, I knew I would have picked up on that.
I have a feeling that someone at 60 Minutes at some stage has decided, well, hang on a sec, we've got to fill the last couple of seats, and the way they've gone about this, I don't know, but I can tell you that the number that one of our employees was given to phone back and confirm whether they could be part of the audience was a number linked directly to the Willoughby premises.
Nine's head of news and current affairs, John Westa Clott, went on 2GB's Chris Smith's talk program to play down the controversy. Here's what he had to say.
Well, they may have been, but it has nothing to do with the worm or 60 Minutes or the Nine News department regarding this exercise today. So and I can only reassure people listening to you that that's how it was done, and that's how carefully and professionally we intended to proceed with this. So I don't know where they're getting their information or how it's coming about, but that's just not the case. We are in the middle of an election campaign, and mischief is the name of the game, I think.
There was nothing uncommitted about that worm audience. We were had.
Chris Smith wasn't buying the spin then, and he's not buying it now.
John's response about it being mischief-making and it's an election campaign, I'm sorry, is typical television executive spin for the fact that, something's gone wrong. Either it's gone wrong in our own premises or it's gone wrong within McNair. But whatever it is, I'd like to know, and I'd like to see them get to the bottom of it, because we've all been conned.
I don't think anybody could really take the worm seriously. It's just a TV gimmick.
Gerald Stone is the former news director at Channel 9 and the first executive producer of 60 Minutes. He says when it comes to the worm influencing elections, viewers are well educated enough and can see it's all Channel 9 hype.
Do people sit there and say, well, that's the way the worm swings, so that's the way I'm going? I don't think so. I don't think ordinary people feel that way, but it sure picks up a hell of a lot of press coverage.
I don't take much notice of the worm either.
Andrew Burke reporting.
The most unbelievable capitulation of this election campaign so far is that Mr Rudd now agrees with me on climate change.
As Mr Rudd and Mr Garrett defended their position at a news conference, the lights went out.
Time for some renewable energy, please. Just because a person is sick doesn't mean that he is necessarily pure of heart in all things.
Who on earth is Minister Abbott going to insult next?
Mark Riley, 7 News. Who is he going to need? Me.
I I just think Nine are just bullshit artists.
Okay.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Don. All right. 27 after midnight, 131873.